Hey guys, welcome back to our next video, and now here we're talking about active information gathering. So in the previous video I was explaining what's the point of passive and active. The point is that in the passive you don't really send packets to any server or infrastructure that involves a target, and in the active scanning your packets and your actions are towards that infrastructure. So you can get traced, you can review yourself and do not that without permission. So the first two I am going to specify as active information gathering is again discover. So if I run discover and I go for domain and I go for active for 2 and I'll specify target, it's gonna do the very same thing, but it's gonna get different results like the infrastructure IP addresses. It can try to find possible port numbers and so on. So I'm just gonna close that. You have to wait, and it's gonna get the same report as previously shown, but this time the scanning could be active. So there would be really a lot of information that this car brought to us. So let's just forget about this car for now and move on with the next tool, which is Burp Suite. Okay, so Burp is built in Kali. You can download it from Port Swagger, I guess. So Burp, there is a version for Windows, but mainly I use it on Linux. As I said, it's built in and it's built in under Community Edition, and I highly recommend to buy yourself the paid Burp because it has a lot more functionality. It can do the work for us, and if I'm not wrong, it's worth like $300. So it's a big deal, really, trust me. The Community Edition is nothing for the paid version. So if you have the money, if you have the willing, just go there and buy that Burp Suite, which is working really amazing. So this is the application. We have target, we have sitemap, scope, we have proxy, and this is basically where the magic happens. This is where we intercept packets. We have spider, and spider is used for mapping the web application, mapping directories. We have scanner, which is not used under the free Burp, and we have the intruder, repeater, when we can repeat different requests, and we can modify different requests, sequencer, when we can sequence requests. Therefore we have decoder. This is really huge when we can basically input something and output in different algorithm format. Let's say, for example, if I type the string ASD and I encode that as a URL, I get that as a URL. If I encode that as a base64, I get that as a base64, and so on. Yeah. Okay, so this decoder is really doing its job great. This tool is working pretty nice, and when we are talking about web application hacking or bug bounty hunting, this is the tool to go. And as I said, if you can, go ahead and buy the paid version. It's kicking tires. So that's why we've basically installed the Foxy proxy, and we've set up to add the address to 197.0.0.1 and port 8080. So if you go to proxy and options, we have to set up the very same proxy right here, because Burp is working as a proxy, and upon sending a connection, sending a request, it's being stopped to Burp, and then we can modify the requests and so on. So when we're talking about hacking web application, Burp is the tool to go. So let me just demonstrate what can happen. Let's just go ahead, turn my proxy to on. Here, go to intercept on, and let's navigate some website, or just type enter in secure connection because we did not set up our certificates. So in order to do that, we need to type HTTP burp. Now download the CA certificate, save file, where it was saved in downloads. Okay, so open preferences, go down to the bottom, I guess security, go down to the bottom and type view certificates. Now click import. Now under downloads, just make sure it's the same, open that, trust, okay. So now I think everything should be fine. Yep, and now it's loading, and see, we have captured basically the request. So yeah, that was the request. Let's just refresh that again, and see, this is the request to Google that we have. We have under the request the method, the host, the user agent. We have different cookies. We can analyze all the cookies and so on. By Control R, we can send it to repeater, from where we can repeat the request multiple times. We have even render response, so we can see what's rendering in real time. So basically, this is the biggest tool that I like you to learn, and I suggest you to learn because, as I said, when we're talking about web application hacking, this is the tool to go. If you get an error when you try to access some HTTPS sites, that's because you need to manually install web certificates as we did. So do not worry about that. And keep in mind that anything here is basically active, almost anything. So Spider is active, Scanner, if you have the paid version, is active, Intruder, attack of the intruders are active. So basically this tool is designed for sending parameters, modifying cookies, modifying requests, and all this tool is doing is active, so keep that in mind. Maybe just analyzing the request is not active because you're browsing like a normal user, but besides that, anything can be active, like a spider, scanner, intruder, and so on. So be really careful, guys. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention is a tool for brute forcing directories. So I told you before that web applications are just web functioning websites, and they're basically running on a web server. That web server is hosted on a machine. So we have a real physical strong server, and that strong server is hosted in a web server. It can be Apache or anything. And on that Apache server, we have the web application, the code, the functionality inside, right? So the web application is consisted of directories, right, and source files. And basically source files are working with directories or different services like databases. And every website or application has different directories. So for photos, for videos, let's say, main page, index page, quit page, login page, so on, we have different directories, different files stored on different directories. And now tools like DivBuster are designed for getting address and brute forcing these directories. So keep in mind that this is active because it's making tons of requests under any single directory. So be careful when using that tool. This basically getting address. There is a default one. You can create yourself one, or you can modify the default one. So there is a default address, and based on that address, the div can go and brute force different directories. So let's try it out. Let's say div https inforcyber.com, and now it's working with the address file. I forgot www, I guess. Okay, yeah, so just mistype the URL. So here we have the default address file, which is in user share derp address in common.txt. Of course, you can go modify that one. You can specify different address with the menu right here. And basically, how I like to run that tool is with the recursive option, because without that option, it's not going to stop ever. And with the output option for outputting in a file, let's say derp.txt. And now we're starting to scanning the web directories of inforcyber.com, and as you can see, it's scanning for different files. So cache, config, admin, WP login, and so on. So this is one of the tools how you can enumerate different directories, how they work and what's inside them. With such tools, you can view files. With such tool, if they find files, you can directly access and download the files. So this tool is great, it's working really nice, and there are many tools for directory busting, but that's my favorite so far. And as I said, this is active, so be careful. Okay guys, so the next tool I like and use for bug bounty hunting, enumerating, and scanning, active scanning, is of course our favorite Nmap. So I know that you all know what's an Nmap, so I'm gonna get it straight. Nmap is just a scanner. For those who don't know, Nmap is just a scanner for IP addresses. It can scan port, services, and it can try to bypass firewalls. There are scripts for Nmap. It can enumerate operational systems. It can see there and extract a lot of information. But the thing about Nmap is that all of its scanning are active. So with Nmap, this is a perfect example of sending packets. We are literally sending packets, and based on the response from that packets, we gather information. That's how Nmap works. We send it, we wait for response, and once upon reached us, we get the information from the packets. So see how much option they have. They have operational system enumeration, host discovery. We can import into files, export into files. We can do a variety amount of things with Nmap. It's just amazing tool, and it has even options for bypassing firewalls. So you have to be very careful again with such tool, because in some countries you can get you to jail just because you are scanning an IP address without permission. So this scan for the Nmap is not secured and not so stealth. There is a stealth option which is all around, of course, but as I said, always hide your IP if you're doing some stupid things. And I'm not, of course, responsible for any action you take. So this is the tool that I mostly use for discovering ports and services. Basically, with that tool, you can discover operational system and therefore try to build your attack vectors. So when talking about enumerating, Nmap is like a rank 1 tool to go. And of course, it's always good to learn Nmap, and I prefer Nmap from Zenmap. Zenmap is Nmap but in graphical user interface, so you can see it right now. Yeah, he's doing the same thing, but he has graphical user interface and he has the ability to map a network. Okay, now let's move into the last tool I want to mention in that video, and this tool is nonetheless Metasploit, so MSF console. That's how you run Metasploit. So the Metasploit is a framework for hacking and for scanning. It can not only hack, it can scan. This is basically a framework of a lot of modules, and any module is responsible for action. There are exploits based on, payloads based on, so with the huge database there are loaded exploits and payloads, and depends on what module you use, depends on what vulnerability you find, you can exploit a target or you can scan a target. You see most of the auxiliaries right here are for scanning. And scanning can be SSH users, can be brute forcing SSH passwords, it can be scanning for IPs, it can be connecting. The Metasploit has the amazing ability for connection. So connect, and let's say info-cyber.com. Oh, I need I need a host and a port. So let's try ping info-cyber.com. Okay, now copy the port ready, connected. So this means that we're connected to that machine. So see, with the Metasploit we can do a variety amounts of things. We can scan, we can extract information, we can build database, we can shoot exploits, we can run payloads with the exploits towards some vulnerability. So when we go to hacking, keep in mind that Metasploit is a tool which is really noisy. Like, this is the tool that makes a lot of noise, and if you want to stay stealth, Metasploit is not the option to go. Metasploit is made for penetration testers, white hat hackers who has responsibility and has permission for their action. So Metasploit is made up the thing that works, but it's really noisy. So yeah, you can send the exploit, you can send the payloads with the exploit, but there's no way you can be stealth once this procedure is up and running. So all the reverse shells, let's say all the exploits that are shoot with the Metasploits are noisy as hell. So you basically, if you want to stay stealth, you're gonna always want to skip Metasploit with all the shells you're getting, with all the connectability and so on. But if you have the permission, Metasploit is the tool to go, since it's very easy to use. It has really a lot of modules and it is working. And if you want to basically somehow replace Metasploit with a tool that is not that noisy, you can of course use Netcat. So Netcat is a network knife. Yeah, literally. This is tool when it can connect to any port, it can do such things like reverse shells. So Netcat is a tool for being stealth and somehow do some of the functionalities that Metasploit can. Let's say with Netcat we can connect with the same server. we see it's qualifier, so netcat is used for enumeration again. We've enumerated that it's qualifier, so we've enumerated the text HTML right here. So netcat can be used for enumeration, but as I said, everything here is active. For doing that command and see the IP and the port, we are basically sending packet to that infrastructure, and based on that response we get our information. So I want you to be really careful upon doing that things, but if we are talking and comparing netcat and Metasploit, netcat is far more stealth. So if you want stealthness, better go for the netcat. It's always the tool to go. So now let's get into the bug bounty itself. Bug bounty is a procedure of finding bugs, and finding bugs can be literally anything. Like you can go there and try to search for bugs, like on the web application, on the network level, try to hack your way through the system. And when you do that, just say, hey, see, I did that, I hacked by doing that, now give me the money. Right, so bug bounty is all about finding bugs. Finding bugs can be done with all such things. Like the good procedure is to gather as much information as possible, as I told you many times before, and I told you that all about hacking is information and logical thinking. So if we enumerate, let's say, with the DNS records and so on, with some of the scripts, we enumerate that such application is running on multiple servers, has instances on multiple servers. Let's say the login form can be on one, the mail servers can be on another, and so on. So basically, from that much information about a cluster of servers, we have to go there, build a database of course, and try to penetrate any single one of them, because there could be one vulnerability on one server, but that vulnerability can be crucial and can help us get our way through the main one. So it's not always the case when you have, for example, Instagram. It's not the case you go Instagram and try to hack the server, because that's the most obvious thing to do. The security guys of Instagram are making sure that their server is stable and secured, but they may be forgotten something on some other server that can lead to potential escalating of privileges and so on. So my suggestion is, as I said, gather as much information as possible. Always first go for the passive scanning, and when you are sure and when you see something strange, go with the active one. It can be Nmap, it can be scripts, it can be Metasploit, netcat. Just go for the active one, try to search for vulnerabilities and hack them. And of course, you can choose. You can either choose to go first for the web application or to go first for the network level. And if you go for the web application, it's quite the same thing. Should burp, should derp. You can use tools like even fuzzers. I didn't mention them. You can go ahead and watch some videos about fuzzing, Zaproxy. These are some replica of burp's active scanning. I'm talking about the paid version. If you get a paid burp, you're gonna get an option for active scanning, which is basically fuzzing a tons of parameters, and fuzzing is a procedure of testing different parameters and see the output. Like the very same thing when we're talking about networking. Like we're sending packets and waiting the packets for response, the fuzzing is throwing different parameters and waiting the response from the web application to see is it stable or not. And the replica of burp, as I said, paid edition is Zaproxy and other fuzzing tools. And of course, as I said, this is again active, so be careful. And therefore, if you go with the web application, didn't find anything, go try with the network. If you didn't find anything on the first eye or second eye, go there and try different server and so on, unless you find a weak spot. And if any server seems secure, then you have to dig even down deeper. You have to have a lot of knowledge and search for things that are not supposed to be there. So guys, I hope it was interesting and useful for you to know such tools and to know the basic idea of bug bounty. So from here, I'm not responsible for any actions you take about using of any tools out there, but keep in mind that active scanning is always coming second. Always go for the passive one, and when going for active, always make sure that you are secure. So that means you either have an engagement and you have a responsibility and the permissions to do so, or you have successfully hidden your IP address. So I really appreciate you for watching and see you in the next video, guys.